spikes. The casket was made of multiple pieces that could be opened to allow a person to enter. The shape of the casket forced the new resident to stand upright for a long time. To make matters worse, the iron spikes would pierce the body of the poor chap inside. The length of the spikes was long enough to pierce the skin and flesh, but were too short to reach any organs or other vital parts. Obviously, this was done to make sure the victim would suffer during their stay, but not necessarily die a quick death. Kind of like staying in a Park Plaza hotel. Keel hauling. The name keel hauling comes from the Dutch word keelhalen. The invention of keel hauling was basically the result of being on a ship combined with Dutch ingenuity to come up with creative punishments with limited resources. The far-stretching Dutch-Asian trading routes had ships sailing the world seas for many months on end. Many cases of misconduct or mutiny broke out on these ships. To crack down on these revolts, captains enforced severe punishments on the agitators. With keel hauling, a long rope dragged the sailor under the hull of the ship. This method could play out in many ways. However, most outcomes were somewhere between bad and very bad. If it was bad, the sailor would be dragged along the hull, which was usually covered in barnacles. These would cause painful lacerations. If the outcome was very bad, the sailor could die from head trauma, hitting the rocking hull, or simply but obviously drowning, which is the worst nightmare for every Dutch person. Rat torture. Most people are not a fan of rats, and this next torture method is not going to change that. The most famous variant is the bucket rat torture, originating from the Tower of London's Rats Dungeon in the Elizabethan era. A dark cell near the high water mark would draw in rats from the River Thames. The rats started to eat on the limbs of the prisoners while they were still alive, and not a very pleasant experience. During the Dutch Revolt, a pottery bowl filled with rats was placed upside down on the naked body of a prisoner. Hot charcoal was piled on the bowl, making the rats inside the bowl panic. Desperate to escape the heat, the rats would eat their way into the bowels of the victim. This process would be quite horrifying and extremely painful, making the victim die a slow death. Later, several South American dictatorships followed up on the rat torture, with Argentina refining the method to something called a rectoscope, with rats being inserted into a tube so the rats could gnaw their way into a victim's rectum, elaborating on the expression, not giving a rat's ass. Crucifixion. Crucifixion